Okay, I'm going to read out an article about a case which is quite thought-provoking, and I'll share my thoughts afterwards, but I'll just read it out first, okay? Not the whole thing, but the general the first few paragraphs. Lynch-mob used butcher's meat cleaver to castrate rapist they caught attacking teenage girl in alleyway in Indian city. Probably at this point I should say this is quite graphic stuff, so if you think it's going to be too heavy, then don't watch this video. Suresh Kumar was caught pinning a teenage girl against a wall. He was then dragged to a butcher shop and beaten for an hour with sticks, before angry locals used a meat cleaver to castrate the 40-year-old. An Indian man who was caught trying to rape a teenage girl is in critical condition in hospital after locals chopped off his genitals with a meat cleaver. Suresh Kumar was set upon in Ganganagar in India's northwest Rajasthan state after locals heard the girl's screams for help. After finding the 40-year-old pinning the girl against a wall, a lynch mob dragged him to a butcher's shop where they beat him with sticks for an hour before castrating him. And the report goes on. There's some pretty graphic images. This is from the Daily Mail. They then dumped the severed remains in the middle of a road and left bloody Kumar nearby. Amir Dawan, 30, said no one went to help Kumar because they knew he had been punished for a sex crime. Mr. Dawan said, "We have had a lot of intolerable offences against women in this country recently, with girls being raped, hung and molested, and it's time it stopped. This sends out a very strong message to anyone like that. If you do it, you will be punished. But the police have called for those responsible to come forward, saying people can't take the law into their own hands." The spokesman said, as deplorable as these crimes are, law and order has to be maintained and not lynch justice. We ask those men who carried out this attack to hand themselves in before we find them. Okay, so there you have a case whereby a man has been caught with committing a very serious crime. Furious locals have taken law into their own hands. Now, in this particular case, it looks relatively straight cut. He was caught in the act. It's not a case of a rumour. It's not a case of someone alleged that this man done it. He was caught in the act. So I think his guilt is relatively clear cut in this case. But I have to say, I've always been uneasy with lynch mob justice. And before anyone calls me bleeding hearts, who has no sort of emotions for victims of crime, I think sex crimes against women and girls are absolutely disgusting, and I think rapists should be given severe penalties through a court of law. Sex crimes not only have physical damage on the victim, but also long-term psychological damage. So there's no question about it that it is not a trivial thing. It's a serious crime. In the last few years, of course, India has been in the spotlight for this, for sex crimes against women, and it's a huge problem in India. There's no question about that, to the point where some Indians resent their country being tarnished with this reputation. So I don't know if it's because of India's bad reputation or because they genuinely are angry at what's happening to women that we're seeing these sort of vigilante cases. Now, this particular case may have been clear cut, but I have seen a lot of videos online where alleged rapists, alleged molesters have been attacked, and this makes me very concerned. It makes me concerned because when you have an enraged mob, which may have been stirred up by one rumour, what on earth is to stop them targeting an innocent person who may be in the wrong place at the wrong time? This is not far-fetched. I mean, in Britain, I've mentioned this in previous videos, in Britain we've had plenty of cases whereby mob mentality has resulted in innocent people being targeted. For example, we had a case about 10 years ago where innocent women who resembled Maxine Carr were targeted by mobs. Maxine Carr was an accomplice to a child murder case, so women who happened to resemble her were targeted. There was also cases where, about the year 2000, there was the murder of a schoolgirl, Sarah Payne. That stirred up a lot of this sort of stuff, and you had these mobs, especially around Plymouth, who would actually phone up alleged paedophiles and warn them to watch their back, and it got very, very ugly. Now, just to be clear, I don't regard myself as a liberal on crime. I do believe these people should be severely punished. I don't believe in the death penalty, but I do believe in years behind bars. I believe that there needs to be a strong deterrent sent out. But I do feel that India is going down a path which is equally problematic, which is one of anarchy when it comes to justice. Now, I'm trying to be open-minded as to what may have brought about this situation. I understand that rape cases in India can take as long as 10 years to process, and there is understandable anger and frustration. And certainly if my sister or my girlfriend or any woman close to me suffered in this way, I would want to beat the daylights out of the guy responsible. Of course I would. It's a human reaction. But it's very important that emotions don't dictate actions all the time, especially in cases like this. In an ideal situation, the man would have been arrested, he would have been tried, and he would have been punished heavily. But this sort of public lynching is going to make India go down a dark path, and inevitably innocent men will be targeted. That is absolutely inevitable. Maybe this guy wasn't innocent, like I say, he was caught in the act, but that doesn't mean it isn't possible that innocent men won't be. I think it's very likely, in fact. And there's nothing civilized about that. There is nothing productive about that whatsoever. To me, that is just as barbaric as the crime itself, if an innocent man is targeted for something that he potentially hasn't done. That he hasn't done if he's innocent. So just to be clear, I'm not saying this guy is innocent, but even so, I still think lynch mob justice is not the answer. Clearly India has a huge problem with this, and I really do understand public anger. If I was an Indian, I would be furious with these people. But this approach cannot be the answer. So if you're Indian, let me know your thoughts on this. Well, you don't have to be Indian, but it would be good to hear Indian perspectives. And please don't come on and say, oh, you sympathise with the rapists or something like that. It's really not about that. I think rapists are scum. I think they should be punished. I'm just not convinced that this is going to be the right approach. And I do understand that if there's police inactivity, if arrests aren't being made, then this sort of thing might be inevitable. But I still think it is dangerous, because at some point innocent men are going to be targeted. It's going to create a mob mentality, and that's very dangerous and very ugly, and it's not good for India. I mean, a country that can send a satellite to Mars, you know, surely needs to contain this sort of behaviour. So it comes down to providing justice for women and girls who have suffered in this way, but also not those in a position of power also need to take action against lynch mob behaviour. So the men who done this should be arrested, because otherwise it sends out the message that anyone in India can take the law into their own hands. And then what stops it becoming a case of not just against sex crimes, but against any crimes? And then you have basically anarchy. That's the danger.